From 2008 to 2013, 4 former U.S. soldiers posted online claiming encounters with a mysterious creature. The 4 didn't know each other, but their descriptions of the mysterious creature were strikingly similar. According to their accounts, a wolf-like body and glowing eyes. It's worth noting, all 4 had served at Fort Campbell military base. Fort Campbell Military Base is a highly active U.S. military installation, straddling Tennessee and Kentucky. It's home to the U.S. Army's renowned 101st Airborne Division, and another elite unit, the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. But even in a place like this, filled with elite U.S. soldiers, strange encounters happen frequently. In reports of paranormal events, Fort Campbell Military Base frequently appears in connection with Pierce Village and paranormal incidents in areas like Hammond Heights. Multiple documented cases of UFO sightings have also occurred nearby, including reports of strange objects by multiple soldiers. In January 1948, a fighter jet from the base, while chasing an unidentified flying object, crashed, resulting in a soldier's death. In 1995, multiple unexplained events involving strange creatures occurred around the base, like soldiers encountering little green men and Bigfoot sightings. In short, Fort Campbell is not just an active military hub. It seems to have a strong pull for paranormal phenomena. The story we're diving into today happened around this base, a new mysterious creature sighting, the tale of the mysterious Dogman. 12 days down. 2 more to go. This sucks. I should order a pizza. No. It's just the RTO again. Hey man, I know you're doing battery runs, but do you happen to have any caffeine on you? Like a Monster or something? What the hell are you doing? You know I can't hear you, right? Good thing you're a radio man, not a sniper, because that was close. Oh. The first Dogman sighting happened in 2003. A retired veteran shared online. I was stationed at Fort Campbell. Our training area was called Back 40, with thousands of acres of ranges and training grounds. My story took place in Back 40, near a temporary town called Cassidy. It's out in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by forests and thick brush. It was mid-July, so everything was full of life. My company was in this area for a 2-week field exercise. After we took over the town, my platoon was assigned to the tree line about 100 meters from town to set up a blocking position. On the 12th day of the field exercise, my squad was at the far right end of the blocking position. I was a squad leader in an infantry platoon. We had dug in our positions. I was leaning against a tree about 10 to 15 meters from my soldiers. After darkness fell over Back 40, the guys were exhausted. A few hours passed. I wasn't keeping track of time, but if I had to guess, it was around midnight. No moon. The only thing visible was the faint glow coming from Cassidy town behind us. I was on alert duty at the time. Our platoon's radio operator was moving back and forth behind us. Every 20 to 30 minutes, I could hear him pass by, so I was used to the sound of his footsteps. Not long after, I heard stumbling footsteps again. I didn't think much of it, but they got closer, moving unusually slowly. I turned and shouted, "What are you doing?" Right then, I saw something crouching about 20 meters away, letting out a low dog or wolf-like growl. My body froze. The hairs on my neck stood up, heart pounding like crazy. That thing was hunched, at least 5 feet tall, crouching lower and lower. I was completely paralyzed with fear. I stared at it for another 10 seconds or so, then yanked out my entrenching tool, eyes locked on the target, and quickly switched to night vision mode. The moment I switched to thermal imaging, that thing turned and bolted into the jungle, quick as lightning. It lowered its body and charged at full speed. Its silhouette appeared in the thermal image, sprinting. My buddies nearby heard the loud crash of breaking branches. Its speed was way beyond human. It was bigger than a deer, especially since it was running upright through the brush. Late that night, another squad leader reported heavy rustling near his position. Soldiers said they smelled a foul, wet dog-like stench, really strong. Just before dawn, we suddenly heard something like a low, eerie howl. Coyotes are common around here, but this sound was completely different. Before I enlisted, I'd heard about weird things happening around Fort Campbell. I never believed them before until this personal encounter. My buddies and I all agreed. We were definitely not alone out there. Something was lurking in the shadows. It was canine-like, from what I could tell. It was dark-colored. I don't want to speculate or give wrong details, but I've never heard or felt anything like this. Never. Hey, Sergeant? Yeah. Our hole is filling with water. Hey, yup, it sure is. Okay. Anyone got any cigarettes? Preferably dry ones. It's times like these that make me wonder if 4 years of this is really worth the free college? Don't forget about the Dodge Charger. Who's that? Probably the RTO again. Yo, what are you doing? You lose something back there? Need any help? We've all got our nods. Is that a coyote? Sounds way too big to be a coyote. Paints, get your nods up. Interestingly, the second story happened during the same exercise, but possibly not the same night. This time in heavy rain. Despite the dense forests of Kentucky being home to many wild animals, this was nothing like anything the soldiers had seen. Like the first soldier's case, mainly because of how this thing moved. The narrator, Mark, was serving in the 502nd Infantry Regiment. The training took place in Cassidy. After about 5 days of the exercise, his unit was sent to the tree line to build a defensive line to prepare for follow-up attacks. But as soon as they entered the woods, a downpour hit. Complaints were non-stop. Mark was with the squad leader, machine gunner, and assistant gunner at the same position, lying on the ground in the pouring rain. As the rain got heavier, they stopped caring about the damn exercise and sat shoulder to shoulder against a tree, waiting for new orders. They talked about smoking to pass the time, but couldn't even light up because the cigarettes were soaked to mush. A moment later, the radio operator came to swap out handheld radio batteries. The sound of him crunching branches was audible to Mark's group from far off. About 20-30 minutes after he left, the same heavy footsteps came closer again. At the time, none of them had night vision on. The soldiers thought it was the radio operator, but the footsteps kept getting closer. The soldiers waited for him to say something, but it was dead silent. After a tense moment of suffocating silence, Mark couldn't help but yell, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" Still no response. Then heavy sniffing sounds came from behind, like a bloodhound tracking prey, just a few meters to their right rear. Mark and the others froze, listening intently, trying to figure out what it was. Right then, rustling leaves came from the bushes between Mark and the assistant gunner, with louder, more urgent sniffing. The soldiers' hair stood on end, gripping their machine gun. The assistant gunner raised his night vision, turning to get a clear look at whatever this thing was. In that instant, the soldiers heard a loud crash. It bolted into a ditch on the right side of the road, sprinting downward and racing deep into the forest. The soldiers stood there stunned like statues. Whatever that sound was, it was too heavy to be a coyote. The footsteps were clearly from something running on 2 legs, definitely not a 4-legged animal. This couldn't possibly be a typical forest creature. Mark and his group stared at each other, still shaken. They'd heard the camp stories before. Mark said they already knew about the Dogman rumors. Interestingly, our first sergeant was really into these legends. You could call him a folklore buff. After Mark and the others reported this encounter, he went on and on about the origins of the Dogman. The next soldier to share a strange encounter was in the same airborne unit as the first 2 soldiers. But it's unclear if his experience happened on the same night as the others. The first soldier mentioned it was during a 2-week training exercise, while the third soldier said his was a 4-week training exercise. The legend of the Dogman creature often stands on its own, seen as some kind of undocumented bipedal animal. But this soldier offered a possible explanation for the Dogman's true origins. He believed it might be a creature often mentioned in Native American folklore, commonly referenced in their stories. This narrator's identity is unknown. For convenience, we'll call him John. John served in the 502nd Infantry Regiment of the 101st Airborne during a 4-week training in Fort Campbell's Back 40. One night during this period, John and a buddy were on watch with night vision goggles. They were lying by the roadside around 2 a.m. It was drizzling. John was watching one side of the road while his buddy watched the other. Right then, something weird happened. Suddenly, the buddy behind John started thrashing, yelling, and shouting around him, saying something had grabbed him, trying to drag him into the drainage ditch. John had no clue what was going on, so he leaned over to peer into the drainage ditch. John heard a gurgling sound coming from nearby, like the noise a wild boar makes. It sounded far off, but John swore he also heard what sounded like human feet slapping against the concrete as it ran. John stepped back a few paces, aiming his night vision at the drainage ditch exit across the street. His buddy was crawling backward. Then, John said it was absolutely the legendary Dogman. It stood about 9 feet tall, with the head of a dog and the body of a wolf. It stood upright on 2 legs with unusually broad shoulders. He couldn't tell if it had fur or rough, leathery skin, but John clearly saw its ears, pointed and large. The moment he saw it, John yelled and fired a training round. Then the Dogman turned and bolted into the woods, snapping several small trees. Some were outright broken in half. Then it suddenly dropped down and fled on all fours. About a week after this incident, John's squad was training in the jungle with their night vision goggles on. The squad members pushed through an unusually dense patch of brush. The thickets were about 10 feet tall. Right then, they heard bursts of howling. The team leader radioed asking what the hell that thing was. No normal animal could move that fast. Given the thick brush John was in, it was just too creepy. Later, John and his squad members were called to the first sergeant's office to explain the incident. He directly ordered them to keep quiet and never mention it again. To this day, John often thinks of that creature. Its eyes are still vivid in his mind. When he saw it through the night vision, the scariest part was those eyes, those glowing eyeballs. Jeez, this ain't creepy at all. Was this the last time anyone's been out here? Does the army even use these buildings anymore? I don't think so. I mean, half these things are falling apart. We're sure these buildings are empty, right? This kinda looks like the kind of neighborhood where the Hills Have Eyes people would live. Chill out. I'm sure. I mean, look, most of the doors have locks on them. That one doesn't. Huh. The wooden hut over there. The door's open. You want to go look inside? Yeah, okay. Just gonna push this open. Ah, dude. The final story is about 2 soldiers, bored late at night, sneaking off to wander around an abandoned training village in Back 40. It had a ton of mock village setups, pretty huge. But the training grounds and buildings were later abandoned. According to base security personnel, these abandoned buildings often attract vagrants and even creepier things. At the time, Carl was part of Eagle Strike 3, a field exercise for the 3rd Brigade Combat Team. Carl was at Fort Campbell, serving as an air traffic controller attached to the command post. Carl and his buddy were on duty, while other units had pulled back, leaving only the command post core staff and an artillery company stationed nearby. Carl and his buddy had nothing to do, bored out of their minds. They slipped out of the command post for a night stroll, sometimes heading toward the tree line, sometimes exploring the old cabins at the training camp. But that night, they decided to sneak past the sentries and slip into another training area, scattered with 6 wooden huts and 6 concrete shelters, all completely abandoned and in ruins. Carl and his buddy only then dared to turn on the red lights on their helmets, since they didn't want to be spotted far from base. The place gave Carl the creeps, with waist-high overgrown weeds and these dilapidated old buildings. Most of the doors were locked, but one door was slightly ajar. Carl and his buddy stood on the gravel path, staring hard at the open door, feeling like something was hiding behind it. They crept closer to the doorway, taking point cautiously. Reaching to push the door fully open, right at that moment, the back wall of the hut shook violently. The sound of flying debris was deafening. It lasted for several seconds. Both of them jumped back, bracing for something to burst out from the door. But when the noise stopped, nothing was there. His buddy forcefully pushed the door open, finding the room completely empty. They only noticed some displaced gravel, revealing a patch of freshly turned dirt. There was a hole in the back wall, with a tunnel-like pit at its base, like an animal had dug it, like a dog frantically digging under a wall when cornered. The marks showed something had forced its way through that wall multiple times. Seeing this, Carl froze in place. At that moment, Carl was completely paralyzed. The hairs on his neck stood up. But right then, Carl suddenly heard rustling behind them outside the door, coming from the tall grass. They spun around, catching a silhouette in the moonlight. At first, they thought it was a large man, his body mostly hidden in the grass, with only his head visible. But upon closer inspection, Carl realized the thing had the head of a wolf or dog with glowing eyes. It was staring right at Carl and his buddy. Though coyotes are common around the base, no coyote could ever be that size. It moved silently. Carl froze, holding his breath. They stood locked in a stare-down for a while. Then Carl's buddy suddenly raised his arms and stomped forward, like you do to scare off a wild animal. But the thing only flinched slightly, then slowly sank its head back into the deep grass. Carl and his buddy knew they had to get out of there. They covered each other's backs, retreating as quickly and quietly as possible from the scene. The whole time, they felt that piercing gaze following them. Once they got back to the command post, they took a deep breath and started talking about what just happened. To this day, they still can't explain what it was, but the fear of facing it head-on was the worst they'd ever felt. In the lore of mysterious creatures, the Dogman's origins can be traced back to various forest legends. Its sightings recorded even before white settlers arrived. Speaking of settlers, French trappers and pioneers working with Shawnee fur traders were warned by Native Americans to beware of a shape-shifting creature they called the loup-garou, or werewolf. According to one of their legends, a Shawnee shaman gained the ability to transform into a wolf, but he began abusing this power and was eventually killed while in wolf form. It's said his resentful spirit still roams the forests. This werewolf-like creature in folklore is said to haunt the bayous and forests of Louisiana. Whether Louisiana has actual werewolf sightings, skeptics dismiss it as mere folklore, making it seem like just a made-up story. But it's not just confined to Native American legends. The earliest recorded encounter with a full humanoid creature happened in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. 2 lumberjacks witnessed it firsthand. The witnesses described the creature as about 7 feet tall with a dog-like head and human body. Its eyes were said to be blue or amber. Its howl was neither human nor animal. They also confirmed the creature could walk upright on its hind legs. After that, numerous sighting reports emerged across Michigan, mostly concentrated in the northwest part of the state. Locals called it the Michigan Dogman. Its notoriety really took off in the late 1970s and early 1980s, when a Florida tourist family's remains were found scattered inside an RV at Land Between the Lakes. The campsite was located at the border of Kentucky, but they had 2 children, Bradley and Megan. Megan's body wasn't found inside the RV. It said police found her remains dragged up into a tree. But it's hard to find official reports to confirm this horrific incident. Whether the Dogman legend is entirely true, to this day, local residents remain deeply affected by these stories. The Dogman's existence is locally known as the Beast of Land Between the Lakes. Many Kentucky and Tennessee residents have heard these rumors. In a 2020 interview with the Hopkinsville Chronicle, a public affairs specialist from the U.S. Forest Service, when asked about knowledge of this creature, responded like this: "We have no evidence, records, or documentation of any validated sightings of the beast. Some of our staff have worked on Land Between the Lakes for many years. A lot of them know every nook and cranny. They've never seen anything that would point back to a beast existing." The report was written by journalist Dalton York. Despite the spokesperson's response, the rumors of monster sightings, like the experiences soldiers shared, may not be entirely fabricated, because the Dogman legend has long existed in the Land Between the Lakes. So it's not surprising that Fort Campbell soldiers saw similar creatures. After all, the military base and the vast Back 40 training area span the Land Between the Lakes. But to be clear, the soldier sightings mentioned earlier are just personal accounts posted online, with no official reports to back them up. Soldiers encountered the legendary Dogman, so we can treat this legendary creature as just a story to listen to. We don't have to take it too seriously. All right, that's all for this video. Remember to support me